Hello, delegates. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
All right. So I'm going to start off with the basics first, wherein I'm going to talk about the procedures that we're going to follow for the sake of the MN, first of all. And then I'm going to move on to a little bit of a discussion on the topic at hand that basically we are going to discuss for the length of the 2 days that we have. Now, firstly, this is a very odd situation, right? So MUNs happening online is for a good cause, and it's basically practice for you guys. So there's not gonna be a stringent rules of procedure as such, because like it's not possible to follow all the rules of procedure while we're in an online meeting, right? Now, given that, what I'll recommend is that we have an interactive committee rules of procedure, wherein we'll be having one-to-one discussions, and in that case, you can also engage in discussions with your fellow delegates, since we don't have the required strength of DISEC as such, right? So, but the base rules of procedure which we will be following are the UNA USA rules of procedure. Now, how many of you know what's UNA USA rules of procedure, or how many? Let me frame it in a better way. How many of you have actually attended an MUN before?
I have, sir. Oh, this is the delegate of USA.
All right, you have. So others, I'm assuming that you guys have not attended an MUN as of yet, like yet, right?
I've
Uh,
also attended MUN before.
Who is it? Who is this
so
speaking?
also I have attended. So the
Could
delegate
you guys
of
please
India.
turn your camera on so I know who's speaking and who's not? Is it like, if it's not too much to ask, just pop your camera on so it's easier for me. Anyhow, so anyway, I'll just repeat for the sake of the committee. So in UNA USA rules of procedure, know this, that since we are all trying to learn something here, you guys need to understand that UNA USA rules of procedure is not exactly the rules of procedure which is followed in a UN. Now, UNA USA, as the name suggests, is an adaptation of the USA's rules of procedures. Like USA decides that. So it's kind of in collaboration with USA that a rules of procedure has been developed, but that is nowhere near to the rules of procedure that is followed in the actual UN. Now, given that, what is the UN USA rules of procedure, and why is it so abundantly followed? Now, the basic reason why UNA USA rules of procedure is followed like this, this extensively, is because of its simplicity. UNA USA rules of procedure is very simple as such, but again, it does not provide us a lot of room to debate on, but it provides us some which is required. Like it's good for first timers because it's easier, and it's not that clumsy. All right. So first of all, in the UNA USA rules of procedure, what we have is called a roll call, right? So what happens? So we open debate and all. So something that is there in the rules of procedure. But here in this case, I don't think that will be much that will be required, because after all, we are not a lot of people here. So those will be by default, like opening the debate and all, or adopting the agenda. Those will be defaulted, right? So where we'll start from is basically the roll call, since that is something we have to do for the length of the 2 days, because that gives your voting status. So roll call is basically where I call out your names, and the country representatives are supposed to answer whether they're present or not present, or basically absent. Now, there is something called present and voting and just present. Now, there is a difference between present and voting and present. Now, when I say present and voting and present, you're basically like kind of accepting that you will be voting either a yes or a no, or yes with rights, no with rights, during the when the resolution is being discussed. Understood? So present and voting makes it a necessity for you to either say yes or no, yes with rights or no with rights. You cannot abstain from the voting on the resolution, because you have had present and voting. Now, something that I wanted to discuss in this regard for this MUN is that, since we have like a 2 days MUN, and we don't have the strength, as I've said before, of a regular dissect, I want to skip the resolution part altogether. in place of a resolution, what we're gonna do is that we'll have some end statements from every delegate here, concluding statements, I mean, so that we can wrap up the discussion as it's feasible, or as per how much we have completed discussing in the committee. So some basics again for the procedures is we move on to moderated caucuses and unmoderated caucuses. Now in this regard, in moderated caucuses, what you do is basically you pick a time frame, you pick a particular sub-agenda of the given agenda. For example, if my agenda that I've given for this committee is regarding the handling the mitigation of repercussions of the COVID-19 on international peace and security, right? Now, a sub-agenda of that particular topic will be the situation in the Sahel region or the emergency aid crisis in the Darfur region. So I'm sure you are aware of these places right by now, and the situation that is going on there, and the peace process that has been disrupted because of the COVID-19 situation. So you guys might understand what I'm saying here, right? The sub-agenda, how the sub-agenda works. So that is basically the sub-agenda you pick for the moderated caucus session, and then you have a particular time period for it. So now there is a particular verbatim that you need to follow while you are proposing a moderated caucus, and you might as well note this down because this is exactly what you need to say in order to propose a moderated caucus motion. So, for example, I'm the delegate of USA, and I'll be when I want to propose a moderated caucus topic, this will be my exact verbatim, which is the delegate of USA would like to suspend debate and move on to a moderated caucus for the total time period of 1 minute, 10 minutes, per speaker's time being 1 minute on the topic Sahel region, let's say. All right. So the verbatim goes, I'm repeating again. It is the delegate of USA would like to suspend formal debate and move into a moderated caucus for the time period of 10 minutes, per speaker time being 1 minute, and on the topic Darfur region or Sahel region or whatever it is. Now you need to form a particular agenda, not just say Sahel region. This is just for the sake of an example. Now, one more thing that is very important in this regard, or important in the sense of MUN or the basics of an MUN is that, or regarding this procedure as such, is that when you are picking the total time period, right, and when you have the total number of speakers, that per speaker's time must be like, for example, if you have 10 minutes of total speaker's time, and you can have 60 seconds of per speaker's time, because 60 seconds gives you 1 minute. So 1 minute and 10 minutes total time means you have 10 exact speakers. You cannot have fractional number of speakers, right? Because of obvious reasons. Now, when a moderated caucus comes to an end, or for that matter, any caucuses come to an end, for example, moderated caucus or unmoderated caucus, the only motion right after the end of a moderated caucus or an unmoderated caucus must be of an extension motion. For example, when, let's say we have elapsed the period of 10 speakers in a moderated caucus, okay? When we have elapsed the time of 10 speakers, after the 10th speaker speaks, I will be asking for, I'll be saying something like this, that delegates at this point of time, are there any other motions on the floor? When I say, are there any other motions on the floor, I am not looking for another moderated caucus, nor am I looking for for a different moderated caucus or a unmoderated caucus. The only motion I'm looking for is an extension motion. Now, what is an extension motion? Let's say you're discussing a situation, a moderated caucus, which is a sub-agenda of the given agenda. Now, let's say in 10 minutes time, you like the delegates, you guys feel that you have not covered enough and that you would like to speak more or elaborate more on this topic. You can do that. How? You just simply need to add a extension motion. Now there's something you need to know about extension motions. These are technical details, right? So if the original moderated caucus or unmoderated caucus was of 10 minutes, you cannot have an extension motion of more than 5 minutes. That is how the rules go, right? So if you have 15 minutes, then you cannot have more than 7.5 minutes. That is how it goes. Okay. Now this is not only for moderated caucuses. This can happen for unmoderated caucuses as well, right?
Sir, a question.
Yeah. Yes, delegate.
This is the delegate of USA, and I'm
Right.
really sorry for interrupting you. My question was, how do we like, what is the verbatim for asking for an extension to the moderated caucus? Would you like?
Come again. I could not hear you properly. Verbatim
Yes,
for?
sir. For asking for an extension motion, like you
Okay,
stated in
okay.
exact.
I'll tell you right now. I'll tell you right now. It's basically the same. Okay, it's basically the same. So the verbatim goes something like this. For example, if it's the delegate of USA who's asking for an extension motion, it goes something like this. Okay. Now one more thing before I say the verbatim is that in this particular case, when you are proposing an extension motion, you need not suspend formal debate. Okay, because you're already in a formal debate and you're just extending the formal debate. So you did not suspend formal debate. So it goes something like this: that the delegate of USA would like to propose an extension motion of, let's say, 5 minutes, per speaker time being 1 minute. Now, when I said that your total time period for the original motion must be double of the extension of the total time period of the extension motion, your speaker's time remains the same. So again, you have to make sure that your per speaker time perfectly divides your total number of speakers perfectly divide the total time period. You must keep that in mind. You cannot have a fraction in that case.
All right, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is your question answered? You were saying?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right. All right. So now we move on to something called the points. In an MUN. Now there are 4 types of points, right? First of all, you have the point of personal privilege, where you basically ask for any discomfort that you're facing. For example, if your network is lagging and you're unable to understand what your fellow delegates are saying, and you want them to repeat, or anything as such, like you're having some personal discomfort, which is not letting you like focus on the MN, or it's not letting you talk properly, or it's not helping you understand what is being going on. In that case, you raise a personal privilege, point of personal privilege, wherein you suggest the executive board about how we can make it better for you so that your capacity to debate is not compromised. Understood? So that is the only purpose of a point of personal privilege. I have seen a lot of delegates who basically exploit personal privilege to question another delegate, and that will not be tolerated, right? So, and believe me, I have debarred delegates for that. Now, in this case, of course, we're not meeting in person, so there is a problem in this case. But then I'm hopeful that you guys will not do that. Okay, do not
Excuse
exploit.
me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, the delegate of India here. So very
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Sir, is moderated caucus a formal debate or informal debate?
It's a formal debate. Moderated caucus is a formal debate because it is scrutinized by the executive board, or moderated by the executive board, should I say. It's not informal.
Okay, sir.
Anyway,
Thank you.
right. So, yeah, coming back to the points. First of all, we have the point of personal privilege. Next, we have point of order. Now, what is point of order? Does anyone have any idea what is a point of order?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you say.
So point of order is when the delegate feels that there has been some mistake on the part of the executive board.
Right.
Right. Yes, sir. That's it. I
Okay.
I think that.
Okay. Yeah, that is actually very good that you know this. I have seen a lot of delegates make this mistake where they confuse point of order with basically something that when you are pointing out a faulty statement on behalf of your fellow delegates. It's not that. Like point of order is not to correct another delegate. Point of order is raised only when there is a procedural fallacy on the part of the executive board. For example, we have, let's say after a moderated caucus has been elapsed, I straight on go and ask for another unmoderated caucus. Now that is a breach of my breach of procedure. So in that case, if one of the delegates say that point of order, sir, you have missed the extension motion, in that case, that will be a valid point of order and it will be admissible. Understood, delegates? This is something
Excuse
that,
me, sir. Sir,
yeah.
if any delegate makes any factual mistakes, then We'll be
Again,
raising which point?
again, no. See, you are no one to correct a representative from another country. If the delegate is making a factual error, then you have to understand that that is the particular belief of that delegate. And when he says that this is what is going on, when he says that with conviction, you are going to have to let that go, because, like, of course, like, for example, Israel. Let's say we're talking about Israel, right? Now, the Iran, Saudi Arabia, and these countries, they don't. Iran, for example, Iran does not recognize Israel as a legitimate state. So Iran will obviously say that it's a Zionist regime. On the other hand, you have USA, right, who recognizes Israel as a state. So Israel, so of course they will be referring to as the government of Israel or something like of that sort. Now, can Iran challenge USA that it's a factual error to call Israel a state? It's not, right? So it depends on the particular belief of the delegate. So you cannot.
So I mean, like any data mistake like,
Still you cannot. If
okay,
See,
so
the data is vary. Now, if it's not a very blatant mistake, other than a very blatant mistake, you are not supposed to correct another delegate, because that's out of courtesy, right? Understand, you are highly educated. Like, when you are representing a country as a delegate, you're putting yourself in shoes of some highly educated people, right? And in that case, you have to, like, respect those dignities. So you cannot correct a fellow delegate as such. But again, since we are diverting from rules of procedure anyway, and it's a competitive platform, I might allow like points of order on on fellow delegates. I might do that. I'm not yet convinced if I'm going to do that, but then I might. So we'll find out that later. Okay, now coming back to points, we have already spoken about points of personal privilege and point of order. Now, next in line is the point of information. Now, understand that point of information can only be raised during the GSL speech. Now, do you guys know what is a GSL speech, right? You guys know what's GSL, right? General
Yes, sir.
Speakers List, right?
Yes,
So,
sir.
okay, so you can only raise a point of information during the GSL. You cannot raise a point of information during like moderated caucuses. Now, this is again the like how the original rules of procedures go. So basically, what's being done is that if you have a GSL speech where the per speaker's time is, let's say, 1.5 minutes, right? And the delegate finishes her statement or finishes his or her speech by 1 minute. So you have an extra 30 seconds, right? Now, in that case, there's something called yields. Okay, so the delegate has three options, right? Now, you can either yield to the chair, which is the executive board, and in that case, since I'll not be intervening in the course of the debate, I will just be like that time period will get absorbed. Like those 30 minutes will be reverted back to the chair. So that is one type of yield where you yield to the executive board. Now, the second type of yield is the yield to points of information, which is when you get to ask point of informations. Right. So now, okay, what was I saying? Yeah, yields. So when you have yielded to points of information, you have basically the delegate who was speaking has admitted that you are now going to take questions from other delegates on the given agenda or on the given topic right now, like whatever you have spoken on. So when you have allowed that, in that particular 30 seconds, it's again the discretion of the chair to choose who gets to question the delegates. Now, obviously, the delegates are supposed to like raise hands or let me know that they are willing to ask a question, which is when I will be picking up the delegates who will be asking the questions. Now, for 30 seconds, I generally take 2 to 3 delegates for the questions, not more than that. But that depends on how much time we have actually left. So that is the yield to points of information. Now, again, I'll be repeating myself when I say this, that you are not supposed to ask point of information during moderated caucuses. There's no yielding of time in moderated caucuses as well. If your moderated caucus time period is of 1 minute, let's say 1 minute, and you have elapsed it in 30 seconds, then the rest of the 30 seconds just gets like absorbed by the chair. or by the executive board. So you basically return the time back to the floor. Right. Now, having said that, we move on to the fourth kind of point, which is basically the point of parliamentary inquiry. Now, what is point of parliamentary inquiry? When you have a doubt regarding the procedure or regarding how we are proceeding with the committee, like some parliamentary inquiry is basically when you are having some doubts regarding the procedure. For example, after a moderated caucus, you don't know what is the next procedure, like how do we proceed next with the committee, or how does the committee work after this. In that case, you raise a point of parliamentary inquiry about, let's say, you're not like totally clear about how this process is going to work out, in which case I will be addressing those issues and I'll be letting you know how the committee is bound to proceed after this situation. So that is a point of parliamentary inquiry. Now, before going on something called the order of disruption, I'll first talk about the yields. Okay, so first one you already know, yield to the executive board, where you yield the time back to the executive board and that time gets dissolved. I'm pretty sure that I will not be asking any questions. I'll not be asking any questions personally to any delegates, because like I don't. That's again substantive intervention, which I don't do. Now, after that, you have you have yield to another delegate, which of course I will be suspending, because in this MUN we have a lot of time, and every delegate is going to get ample amount of chances to speak. So there's no point having this yield as an option. Like you don't require like it's not required for you to give your time to another delegate, because we already have a lot of time. Now, the third type of yield is, as I've told, it's the yield to point of information, where you say that where you accept questions from other delegates on what exactly what you have spoken, or on the topic in general. Now, one more thing, delegates. This is on a personal note, that after delegate has, let's say, after the delegate has completed his or her speech, and he says, or he or she says that that they are open to points of information. Now, when they say that they are open to points of information, I would honestly request you to not ask questions like, so what did you mean by this when you said this in your speech? Or what is your position on the given agenda? Because that is something you are supposed to understand on your own. Like that is something you're supposed to know, or you're supposed to find out. Ask more technical questions, or if the delegate has spoken about conclusions, conclusion in the sense remedies. If the delegate has spoken about remedies, you can ask about how the delegate wants to like execute those remedies, like how to implement those and get results out of those. So those are more technical questions, and those are better questions to ask than questions like what do you mean by this, or what's your stance on this. So I'm hoping that you guys will refrain from asking such questions, because that just like it wastes time, right? Now, moving on, as I've said, now we'll be discussing about the order of disruption. Does anyone of you know what is the order of disruption? Delegate of
Yes,
USA.
sir. Yes, sir.
Do you know?
May I?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. So, I'll explain it very simply. Say if there are two motions for a moderated caucus, and one of them is for the time period of 30 minutes, one of them is for the time period of 20 minutes. Given that the one that is raised for 30 minutes takes up more time and disrupts more of the committee, it will be voted upon first, and then the one that is slightly less disruptive, that is the one on
Right,
20
you're
minutes.
absolutely right, Delegate. So that is our order of disruption, how it goes basically. Now, before coming to what the delegate of USA said, I will first be talking about disruption on the basis of the hierarchy of the points that I have discussed, the 4 points that I've discussed, as you know. So the most disruptant point is the point of personal privilege. After that, you have the point of order. After that, you have the point of personal privilege. After that, you have the point of parliamentary inquiry, and at last, you have point of information. So that is how the point of how that is the order of disruption in this case regarding the points. So the most disruptant point is the point of personal privilege. Point of personal privilege is something which you can raise while is the only point actually which you can raise while another delegate is speaking. It's out of courtesy that you should not, but then if you are facing some like extreme problems in your network or anything else, like speaking for this MN in particular, if you have any problems that must get addressed, then you have the liberty to raise a point of personal privilege while a delegate is speaking, but then refrain from doing that as a show of courtesy as much as possible. After that, you have the point of order, of course. Then you have point of parliamentary inquiry, and at the last, you have point of information. So now, if let's say the delegate of Bangladesh has risen a point of personal privilege, and there's another delegate who has risen a point of, let's say, parliamentary inquiry, the point raised by the delegate of Bangladesh will get recognized first. Then the point of information will be recognized. So that is the order. Now, talking about what the delegate of USA said, of course, yes, he was right. That, let's say there is a moderated caucus of 10 minutes and there is a moderated caucus of 15 minutes. Since the 15 minutes moderated caucus assumes more speakers, we will be first recognizing that moderated caucus with 15 minutes, and then we'll be recognizing the one with 10 minutes. Now, there's something more that you need to know. Let's say there can be a situation where, although the moderated caucus is for a greater time period, let's say 30 minutes, but then you have a greater per speaker's time. And on the other hand, you have, let's say, a moderated caucus of 15 minutes, but then you have a per speaker's time of 60 seconds, so 1 minute. So in that case, you have 15 speakers, right? And maybe in the other case where the moderated caucus is of 30 minutes, but then you have more per speaker's time. If the total number of speakers in that case is lesser than 15, in that case, the moderated caucus, which has total speakers of 15, that will be recognized first. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that in whatever moderated caucuses, where there is more number of speakers, that one gets recognized, not the other one. More number of speakers is to priority in the disruption order. Now, so that was about it. Now, moving on to unmoderated caucuses. Now, there is also a particular verbatim that you need to follow while raising an unmoderated caucus, and that is very similar to the moderated caucus verbatim. Is actually the same. You just don't mention the per speaker's time, because in an unmoderated caucus you don't have a per speaker's time. You already know that. So it basically goes something like this: that, let's say I'm the delegate of USA, so I'll be saying the delegate of USA would like to suspend formal debate, and also it's important that you say suspend formal debate because you are moving away from formal debate. So would like to suspend formal debate and move into an unmoderated caucus for the total time period of 30 minutes, and that's it. All right. Delegate,
Sir, I had a couple questions, sir.
Yeah, sure.
So you mentioned, sir, that the executive board would not be looking for a resolution, right? So the entire 2 days will just be focusing on speeches.
Right.
Is
So
that right?
just a second, delegate. When I say that I'm not looking for a resolution, does not mean that I'm not looking for a remedy. Resolutions are a way of see, resolutions are not the only way you make a committee successful, right? And so what I have planned to do for this committee is basically hold something called a round robin, which is basically done in Security Council, but then I can also do it here, where I'm going to take concluding statements from every delegate on how we can do this, how we can propose remedies to the World Forum. Yes, back to you, delegate.
Right, sir. I understand that the delegate is that the executive board is obviously the entire premise of the committee is to come up with solutions, but not to present it in the form of a resolution, right? However, this question I had was that for the concluding speech, is there like a separate format or of something, or do we just do it like a normal moderated caucus speech?
No, yeah, right. So as I said, delegate. So what I've planned to do is basically hold a round robin conference. It's called a round robin conference, and it's basically held in Security Council. But then, since we are diverting from rules of procedure, that is what I'm going to hold here as well, because we are actually kind of functioning like a Security Council, given the strength we have right now. So I want to actually treat this DISEC as a Security Council, because that Security Council is something which is very close to my heart. And honestly speaking, I've Security Council is kind of my specialty. So that's how I think you guys will enjoy it that way. Let me know if you differ, of course. An amendment conference is always for the delegates. So you might let me know as well what you guys want. Right. US, do you have any other question?
No, sir, that makes a lot of sense. Only that the concluding speech that is for the round robin will be the same as the other moderated caucus speeches, right?
Right. Yeah.
No different
Exactly.
one.
So a round robin is nothing but a moderated caucus. Just that it's it's held in a more informal way, where you don't, where in which case you don't have a particular time period. So round robin is basically so what I usually do in committees is basically we suspend everything. We like move the like if there is a uh, if there is media inside the committee, I make it a closed door meeting wherein we sit in a circle, and that is where the round robin, the concept of round robin comes. We sit in a circle and we go clockwise or anti-clockwise, but everyone gets a chance to speak, and we don't have a particular time period for your speeches. You can make, let's say, you have unlimited amount of time to make a speech, but then you're also required to keep in mind that there are other delegates who want to speak as well, and it's out of courtesy to not to speak for a long period of time. Understood, delegate? USA?
Yes, sir.
You
So
want,
like we are
yeah.
just going to skip the paperwork and solutions. So we are going to say by our speeches. We are just going to skip the paperwork that the
Come again,
resolution
delegate. Come
does.
again, delegate. I could not hear you properly.
So am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
So like the committee just is going to skip the paperwork. Else all the solutions we are going to make through our speeches in the round robin or the moderated caucus. We are just going to
Right,
skip the paperwork.
right, delegate. We're not having any paperwork for this committee. We are just focusing on interactive. We are focusing on a more interactive committee here. That is always something to do. What we might do now, again, this is something that I want to discuss since you have mentioned this. After the round robin, delegates, listen up. After the round robin conference, what I'm going to have is a committee report. Does anyone know what is a committee report? Does anyone have any idea what a
Sir,
committee
not
report is?
actually, but like what has happened in the committee in the previous sessions or the 2 days, I think that means we collaborate together and we present it before the committee or the executive board. That what has happened in the
Okay,
committee.
okay. It's not that simple, delegate. It's not that simple. I'll explain. So, committee report basically requires you to be diplomatic. Why? Because a committee report is formed in unison among all the delegates. So everyone must have a unanimous opinion on a committee report for it to become a committee report as such, right? Now that is where negotiations play an important role. Since we are not meeting in person, negotiating will be a challenge for us, but then we can always choose to overcome that challenge, right? And that is why I have like it's something that has popped in my mind right now, that we can have a committee report right after the round robin, because I'll tell you why this order as well, like why I have chosen it to be in this order as well. There's an explanation for everything in case of MUNs, right? And this is something that has kept me interested for so long in this MUN circuit, right? So I'll tell you why. So the purpose of a round robin conference essentially is to understand the stance of every delegate. A lot of times when I'm in the executive board, I've seen that delegates keep on asking other delegates either via chats or during points of information that delegate, what is your stance regarding this? What is your stance regarding that? Now the very purpose of a round robin conference at the end of the committee is basically to have to basically sum up the stance of a particular country, so that in presence of the other delegates, so that everyone knows where this delegate comes from and what this delegate expects to happen after this committee is over. How we basically move on to kind of mitigate this situation. Like that is something that which is in the agenda as well, right? So once you know the stance of every delegate, it is easier for you to negotiate with the delegates, right? Of course, in a committee report, let's say Iran always believes that Israel should not be a part of the committee, or should never be a part of like international forums, should not be present in international forums where we discuss international issues. So if Israel is representing is representing itself in a committee, and it says something, of course Iran will not like accept it, right? and that is something which cannot come into the committee report because there are two countries which basically oppose on that particular issue. I'll break it down for you guys. Simple. Let's say USA wants A plus B, right? And India wants B plus C. So the essence of a negotiation is to find out what's common and just implement the common only. In this case, if USA wants A plus B and India wants B plus C, you see that B is common for both of you guys. So you drop A and C and you only work on B. That is how negotiations work, right? And I know that DISEC or Security Council is not the ideal place for negotiations, or because like there's the in case of Security Council there is a veto power, right, which does not like always help the cause. But then in case of DISEC, since everyone has one vote, has an equivalent to one vote, you can implement this stuff. You can be more, you can negotiate more in this committee. So I'll ask you guys to look into this more. And since we have ample amount of talking time, you guys can interact amongst yourself and understand how to proceed. You are not like delegates who have a little bit of experience are not supposed to coerce any other delegates into accepting or not accepting the other motions or something else. You are supposed to help your fellow delegates understand what's going on, like help, give them the importance that you are supposed to give another delegate, and make it more amiable. Make it a more amiable environment for everyone. Right. So, is
Sir,
there any more questions regarding the procedures?
I have a couple questions, sir, but not directly related to procedures.
Yeah. Shoot away. Shoot away.
Okay, sir. So first, given that we'll be only considering the common points of every country, there'll be only one committee report, right, from the entire
Right.
committee.
Exactly. You're
Okay.
going to have a committee report which is basically unanimous.
All right, sir. Second question: how many moderated caucus does the EB expect on the first day?
I have no expectations.
All right, sir. So as many as can be like accommodated,
Definitely.
right?
Definitely.
And lastly, sir, the delegate does not mean to be insensitive, but given that an MUN is always competitive, what would the
Right.
what would the EB like be focusing on in case of marking, like speeches, POIs, skits?
Okay. I'll give you my exact like whatever I follow for the marking scheme. Now it's all right. I understand that at the end of the day it's a competitive platform and that you all want to win awards. Okay. So basically, the most important thing that I focus on in an MUN while marking is basically your delegate etiquette. That is something which is most important. Now, I understand the problem here. It's a problem on my part actually because I'll not be able to effectively mark you on your etiquette since we are having this conference online, right? But what I will be looking to, like at least looking at, is basically if you are disrupting another delegate while he or she is talking, how you present yourself, or I'll be listening over your moderated caucus as well. You're not supposed to turn off your microphone where you're having an unmoderated caucus. I mean, sorry. So when I'll be listening to those as well, and how you basically present yourself with another delegate, that is something which goes into the marking scheme as well. Now I don't have a lot of parameters to mark on, given like on delegate etiquette, because simply we are not meeting in person. But then I always focus on etiquette, right? So I will be listening upon you guys. So I will be marking you accordingly. Secondly, after delegate etiquette, the most important thing for me is how much you are aware of your country's policy, right? Now, one more thing regarding this, okay? I have heard a lot of delegates point out in my committee that this particular delegate has made a policy violation. Now, again, like a point of order, a particular delegate, let's say the delegate of USA, cannot say that the delegate of India has violated its policy because India's the delegate of India, right? He gets his orders or he gets the policy statements directly from the president or the prime minister in India, right? Of India. So being the delegate of India, being the delegate of USA, and I understand you have a knowledge of international politics and you have a knowledge of Indian politics, but you cannot say that the Indian delegate is violating policy. However, if Now, if the executive board feels that there is an unnecessary change of policy, of course, we will take it into account. Unnecessary. Now, mind the word unnecessary change. There was one committee which I chaired where the delegate of USA, the delegate of USA in that committee made a blatant change of policy, like absolutely blatant change of policy. But that was in case of a crisis situation. The committee was a war cabinet, right? That the committee I was chairing was a war cabinet, and in that case, rapid policy changes are required in order to win the MUN, right? So in that case, it is admissible to make a blatant policy change, and that policy change actually won the delegate of USA the prize, the best delegate award in that.
So do we have to make any presidential statements regarding
There is nothing called a
policy
presidential
changes?
statement. There is nothing called a presidential statement. That is something, that is a hoax which is being like, I don't know where it came from. It probably came from the school circuit, and I really don't know. But wherever I have gone to as the executive board, I have always mentioned that there is nothing called a presidential statement in an MUN. You cannot have that. Like, do you understand that? Let's say the committee is being held in Geneva, and delegate of Iran is saying that there's a presidential statement. So you believe the president to fly all the way from Iran to Geneva and then make a presidential statement for the sake of the media? Do you think that happens actually? There's nothing of that sort happens, unless and until it's a crisis situation wherein, like, let's say a nuke is inbound. In that case, of course, the president will declare war. So that is a presidential statement, declaration of war, but not in any other case. It does not happen that way. You guys need to move
Yes,
forward
sir.
from those kind of wrong premonitions. Anyway,
So
any other
and possession papers.
Sir,
Wait. Who was speaking before India?
so delegate of Bangladesh.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question that I just registered yesterday. So I
Right.
just got an observer status in the committee. I was told I got an observer status and I should only be doing the GSL and the moderated caucus. So
There is no problem with that, because like even if you have gotten an observer country, there is no problem with that, because like what we are essentially going to have in the committee is basically a moderated caucus and GSLs and unmoderated
yes,
caucus.
sir.
We're not having resolutions, so it does not matter if you are an observer or not. You can obviously
Sure, sir.
since we are diverting from the rules of from the rules of procedure anyway, you might as well pitch into the committee report, right? Because observers have a right to pitch into the committee report. What you could not have
Yes,
done is
sir.
basically pitch your opinion in a resolution. But since
Yes,
we're not
sir.
having a resolution, it's no there is no observer country in our in DISEC anyway in this case.
Yes, sir. But as a person, as a delegate, I got an observer status for the committee.
Yeah, that's not a problem. That's not a problem.
Yes,
Because
sir.
all we're going to have is basically moderated caucus and JSL speech throughout the length of the committee. So it's not a problem. Since we're not having procedural votes, which is basically the resolution votes, we're not having that. So you need not worry. Right.
Sure, sir.
Were you asking anything else?
So possession papers. Do
Yeah,
we
there's no
have to
position
submit?
papers. There is no position papers. You don't need to submit position papers. But make sure you research, because I've heard before that, like Sahil has let me know that the only reason why you guys are supposed to do position papers so that you research, right? So it's basically to make you research. Now, given it's a 2-day committee and we are not a lot of people in this committee, you guys must make sure that you have a lot of research at hand, because you are the ones who are supposed to speak for the entire length of the committee, of the 2 days of the
Yes,
committee.
sir.
Make sure you do not exhaust your research material. And let me tell you, there is a lot of things which comes under our topic. Now understand, there's a reason why I have kept the topic so ambiguous, right? The mitigation of repercussions of COVID-19, right? I have kept the topic this broad for one purpose only, so it is that so we don't run out of uh, research. Understand there are a lot of parameters of this crisis right now that the world is facing. This is something that I wanted to discuss again here. So now I think before I move on, is there any other questions regarding the rules of procedure, delegates?
None, sir.
Is that everyone's opinion? No one has any question on the rules of procedure? All right. So let's move on from the rules of procedure. We're done with the rules of procedure. And let me tell you, delegates, I'm not going to repeat the rules of procedure again on the day of the committee. Tomorrow I shall be starting off with the committee right away. Now,
Yes, sir.
okay. So now moving on from the rules of procedure part, regarding the agenda, right? Regarding the agenda, has everyone gone through the study guide?
Yes, sir.
All right. Then you must have noticed that at the end of the study guide, I have mentioned something which says that the study guide is basically indicative and it's not exhaustive. What does that mean?
Yes, sir.
It means
So
one
that
thing. Yes. Yes, delegate,
that the
continue.
research does not stop there.
Exactly. You are not supposed to bound your research only to the ambit of the study guide. You are supposed to look further beyond the study guide, like far beyond the study guide. It's just an introduction to the crisis that is going on. You are supposed to elaborate on that crisis. You are supposed to ask questions and answer them, right? Study research. uh, you must research in a way that you come up with your own questions about how this something is going to be addressed, right?
Yes,
Now,
sir.
there's something I wanted to discuss regarding this, is that regarding the topic, right? So when we're talking about COVID-19, it's not just the biological part, which basically refers to the virus and everything else, right? Everything else that is going on. It has a lot of political it has a lot of political what do I say, impact as well. I'll say how. Like, for example, um, right. So as of now, you know that there are a lot of conflict-ridden areas in the world, right? And I mentioned, okay, remember that I say conflict and not war. There's a difference between conflict and war. Okay, so there are a lot of places where there's an ongoing conflict, and a lot of peace processes have been developed in the manner in respect to with respect to those places, which are supposed to basically dial down the magnitude of those conflicts. Now, given this situation where people are nervous, people are scared, COVID-19 plays a role in which disrupts all such peace processes. And it's not just political, like it has a lot of parameters, right? It has a parameter like where the non-state actors and the state actors, they might take this as a political, where they might use the COVID-19 situation as political opportunism. You'll find these terms on the net on un.org. Okay, make sure you understand what these terms mean. What does political opportunism mean, right? I'll tell you, I'll give you some very simple example about what comes under the ambit of DISEC, right? For example, let's say there is state A, and there is supposed to be uh, let's say a vote to be conducted for the election, like an election to be conducted in that particular state. Now, given there are, that there are a lot of parties involved, right? Now, when there is an election, there is always an opposing party, and there is always a favorable party, right? The party which is supposed to win, maybe, and there is a party which knows that it's not going to win the election, but then it wants to disrupt the election so that the party who wants to win does not get to win as well. Now, this is political opportunism, and this is very much what is being done across the globe, given the COVID-19 situation, because it has already hampered hampered civilization in ways that is something which has not been taken into account as of now, right? And given that situation, it's easier to hamper worldly order. So these are the things. Now, when a country does not gets election, a lot of non-state actors rise, and that challenges peace and security, right? Now, there are a lot of cross-border conflicts as well. Cross-border conflicts look into like bioterrorism parts. So there are a lot of. Now, what I want you to do is basically divide the given agenda into parts, right? Of bioterrorism, political opportunism, aid, like humanitarian aid, which are getting disrupted because of the situation. Uh, Negotiations that are at halt because of this situation. Again, now something else would be
The economic instability.
economic repercussions. But again, delegate, I'll try like I hope you know that DISEC does not have the mandate to basically uh, execute something regarding economic repercussions, because that is something which comes under the mandate of ECOSOC. You guys know about ECOSOC, right? So
Sir, could I clarify something?
yeah, definitely, USA. Go ahead.
Sir, DISEC is a recommendatory body, right? It just makes
Yeah,
suggestions.
it
So
is.
we
It is.
can make suggestions to
Yeah,
economic
exactly. You
reform.
can make suggestions. You can make suggestions, but you cannot implement those. DISEC does not have executive power. Okay.
Understood, sir. So we can make suggestions, right?
Yeah, you can make suggestions. Okay, Delegate of USA, since you have done MN before, do you know what mandate actually stands for? Like, what does mandate mean?
Uh, I'm
Or
sorry, sir. I don't.
better question. Why do you think mandate exists?
Sir,
No
as far as I am,
problem if you don't know, just try.
all right, sir. So I am fairly new to money, but as far as I can understand, a mandate is sort of a recommendation for countries. I think it is not legally binding, and I
Wait,
think
guys,
that is.
first of all, mandate has nothing to do with recommending countries. Okay. Anyway, proceed. What were you saying?
Sir, I thought that mandate is something that is like some sort of a law that should be like some sort of a, recommendation of the UN, which is up to the countries to either follow or not. I might be wrong. I'm probably
No. I'll tell you what mandate is. So, why we have a mandate? Like you delegates who have attended MUs before must have heard the executive board say that this is not in the mandate of the committee. So there is mandates for Security Council, ECOSOC, all other countries. Like similarly, we have mandate for DISEC as well. Now, I will now completely say something. I'll say something which is completely against what I've said so far. That there is no mandate as such in a committee. But why do we still say that there is like follow the mandate? Why? It's basically coming back to what US has said, that something like uh, let me like kind of rephrase it for you. So whatever that cannot be executed by a particular committee is said to be not in the mandate of that committee. Why? Because since you are not being able to execute something, the committee does not have the executive power, you are basically wasting time when you are talking about such executive method, right? Do you guys understand? Like, do you guys get me?
yes,
What
sir.
I'm trying to say? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir. As in, if the committee cannot execute it, then there's no point making talking
Exactly.
about it.
There is no point discussing it at all, right? Because you don't have the executive power. Which so now coming back to the mandate thing, that you like the delegates have the right to talk about anything and everything they want to when they are given their floor, right? So there is no mandate as such, but the mandate comes into play when you don't like when the committee does not have an executive order on a particular respect, and you are discussing it anyway. So for example, in this case, if you're talking about executive economic power, economic repercussions or something, economic like ways to stabilize the economy, you can of course make recommendations to the ECOSOC. But then since you don't have executive power, since DISEC does not have economic executive powers, you cannot discuss it. And also something you Delegate of USA, when you say that uh, you can make recommendations to ECOSOC, that generally comes under the resolution. Like when you are making a resolution, that is the only place where you mention that you are making recommendations to the ECOSOC and all. You generally don't mention it when you are having a moderated caucus or an unmoderated caucus. That's something not done. In unmoderated caucus, of course, you can, because that's not being moderated by the executive board. But when you're making a speech in a moderated caucus, in that case, you don't generally talk about recommendations. Not generally. Again, the delegates have the entire right to speak about whatever they want. They will be marked. They will be marked on what they will be speaking about. But then I cannot limit a delegate like what he or she is supposed to talk about or not. So you have the liberty to make your speech on whatever that is important, whatever that you feel is important. All right. Anyway,
Sir, could I ask something?
yeah. Please be louder. I cannot hear you properly.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now properly?
Yeah. Continue.
Okay, sir. So, the delegate of the United States of America had planned to keep a separate moderated caucus for economic measures, right? But then I believe that is not exactly under, you know, that is not exactly under the mandate of DISEC as explained by you, and which would apparently make it a waste of time. So, instead of doing one on economic stability or measures, could you like make
Delegate,
certain
delegate,
suggestions?
delegate, delegate. Wait, delegate. First of all, I have never said that it's like I'll not say this again. Okay, let me refrain. You said that your topic was basically on economic measures, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, this is the beauty of DISEC, right? If you can relate economic measures to international peace and security, well, go ahead and talk about it in committee. That is how you bring your research under the mandate of the committee. Did you get that, USA?
Okay, sir. So basically, I need to link how economic repercussions are a threat,
It's a
right?
challenge to international peace and security, or it's challenging international peace and security.
Yes,
Understand?
sir.
You
Understood.
understand
Understood,
that?
sir.
So
So
anything and
technically,
everything,
then,
everything and everything. Yeah. Continue.
so this is not about this committee or this agenda or this MUN. This is like a general
Yeah, this is in
question.
general. This is in general. No matter what committee you are in, let's say you are in ECOSOC. Let's say you're in ECOSOC. If you can relate international peace and security with like changing how GDP changes affects the entire world, or the situation, conflict situation, which about which you're talking, you can very well go ahead and talk. It's again, it's as soon as you link international peace and security with economic measures, it comes under the mandate of DISEC.
So
So you can
technically,
very well
then,
go ahead and talk about it.
as
Yeah.
long as we link it, then I guess everything comes under the
Everything,
mandate, right?
everything comes under mandate. Yeah, as long as you can link, uh, international peace and security with whatever you're trying to talk about in the committee. It comes like it can be it's admissible in the mandate of the committee. As soon
Okay, sir. Thank you so
as
much.
long as it has something to do with international peace and security.
Yes, sir. Understood.
Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I hope you guys have already started researching for this MUN. I'll repeat myself when I say this, that understand that we don't have a lot of delegates in this committee, right? Which is why you guys will have ample amount of time to talk, right? And since you're talking, like since we have a lot of time, you guys will be talking on like numerous number of times. So make sure you have adequate research. Now, I'll tell you something. Don't focus on researching for both the days on like today. Just focus on researching about what you want to talk about tomorrow. Just do that. After tomorrow's committee is over, you can go back to researching for Sunday's topic, for Sunday's session. But today, as of now, just research on what you want to talk about tomorrow. That's all. Make sure you have a lot of research prepared. Also, delegates, this is kind of a like in this situation we are all at our home at the comfort of our home, right? We are not in a committee where we are nervous, so I expect every delegate to speak up in this committee. Everyone should speak since you are at the comfort of your home, right? You are already eased out. Don't panic. There's nothing wrong. Like there's like I'll tell you something something that was told to me when I started with my MN journey, right? What my seniors told me, that there's you can never say anything wrong in an ML. Even if you say something wrong, just back it up. Make sure you pursue it. You don't need to panic if you have said something wrong. Make sure you explain it. Make sure you understand what you have done, and you can correct it in your next statements or next speeches. Okay, make sure you do that. Okay.
Could I say something, sir?
Sure. Yes, go ahead.
Again, I'm sorry for taking up so much time, but sir,
Yeah, it's
I'm
all right.
only
I wanted it to be interactive. Never mind. Yeah, go on.
yes, sir. So I'm still fairly new, right? I'm learning. So I was like I had a slight fear that since this is the first time I've been given USA, so I'm not exactly very familiar with the policies. So I might say something like, so there is this fear I might say something that is opposed to, like, that might sound stupid, basically.
See, whatever USS does is stupid basically nowadays. So you cannot make a change a lot. You cannot make a lot of change right now. So now, but then I guess since your president behaves in such a way, you are bound to sound stupid at some point of time. But then I choose to overlook that. don't worry, delegate. If you are saying something which is according to your policy, I will be taking that into account. You did not worry about that. I know how USA works. I know how USA's policies go because I have represented USA a lot as well. So you don't need to worry about that. What? Okay, guys, delegates. One more thing, like some technical issues. Like, what do you know? Like, being a delegate of a country, who do you represent? I'll make it more clear. But I'll make it more clear. So you guys already know that in Syria there are 8 working factions in Syria, right? 8. That's how many number of factions there are present in Syria, and if there is a struggle for power amongst every one of them. So now when you are a delegate representing Syria, who are you representing? That is my question to you, delegates.
Sir, maybe all 8.
So the Syrian government.
Exactly, delegate. Exactly. When you are a delegate of the committee, you are only supposed to represent the government of the country, no one else. So to answer your question, USA, when you are the delegate of USA, you are not supposed to follow what Nikki Haley says. You are not supposed to follow what Trump's personal opinion is. You are supposed to do what the government is doing. Okay, you are the representative of the government, of the president. Okay, so that is how you make your policy absolutely on point. That is something I have been following as well. For example, I'll tell you something. Okay, I'll tell you something. I have represented, so I'm a delegate who absolutely adores the country Iran. Okay, I have delegated as Iran maybe 7 to 8 times in my whole career of MUNs. I have been the delegate of Iran a lot of times. Now to answer, so there is, first of all, you have the representative, the what do you call it? Foreign ambassador. You have the foreign ambassador of Iran. Next, you have the supreme leader of Iran, who is Ayatollah Khamenei, and then you have the president of Iran. Now, the obvious problem that a lot of Iran delegates feel is that who are you representing? Who are you representing? Because there are 3 factions. There are 3 people, right? So you have the foreign ambassador, who is the Mohammad Zarif. You have Ayatollah Khamenei, who is the supreme leader of the country, and then you have the president of Iran. So this is something I need to clear out. So when you are a delegate of Iran, you are only representing the government of Iran, and that is not the supreme leader of Iran. That is your president or prime minister in any case. Understood, delegates? Is there any
Yes,
other
sir.
technical questions that you have regarding the committee, or else we'll end the committee as of now? Or we'll end this interactive session, training session.
So are there any other delegates than 7 of us?
I am not particularly sure. That is again something you need to ask the OC.
Sir,
So
one
there
one
are
thing I need to.
more delegates. They haven't joined the session, but there are more delegates.
All right. Okay. Yeah, you are delegate of USA. Were you saying something?
Yes, sir. Sir, I wanted to say that the group is not very responsive, right? So there has not been any discussion or lobbying. So I was thinking that the few of us that are here could stay back for 5 minutes and just discuss the mod copy.
Definitely, delegates. Definitely, that's up to you. I'm sure that Khalid can let you guys do that. Khalid, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here. They can lobby. I will make one of the delegates hosts, and they can lobby then.
Okay. Just give me a sec. I'll come back in a second. Sahil is calling me. I'll just talk to him and I'll come back. Give me a sec. I don't want to see a particular I don't want to see any no on a particular moderated caucus topic, because you guys will have the time to talk about the topics right now. Okay, when I go off. So that is my honest request, that you guys must comply with each other, cooperate with each other, and make this a solid amendment. Okay, make this as solid as possible. All right.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You guys can start lobbying. I'll be observing for 5 minutes and then I'll be going off. You guys can start lobbying.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So guys, this is the delegate of USA. I'd just like